Welcome back to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
So today we're digging into something that really shakes things up. We've got sources here that pretty much challenge everything most people think about getting rich.
Yeah, it's definitely counterintuitive stuff. The core idea. It's simple, but kind of revolutionary.
Which is?
To get richer, you absolutely have to get smarter. Period.
Because the rules changed.
Exactly. The financial rules of the game, they shifted decades ago. And that makes the old advice people still follow, well, dangerous.
Dangerous. That's a strong word. So we need to toss out the old handbook.
Pretty much. Our sources argue that all those things we were told, work hard, save money, get out of debt, live below your means.
Invest in a well-diversified portfolio of mutual funds. Yeah, I know the drill.
Right. That stuff isn't just like conservative advice anymore. The argument is it's actively obsolete. It actually holds you back in today's economy.
Okay, obsolete advice. That's bold. So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack that. What specific events made the old rules break? And more importantly, how do we develop these 5 core financial intelligences the sources say we need for this new capitalism?
Yeah, good plan. Let's start with why so many people feel stuck, right?
Okay.
The argument is that the systems we trust, especially the education system, they fail us completely when it comes to finance.
How so?
Well, we're often taught to view money with this sort of weird, almost religious hesitation, like it's tainted. You always hear, the love of money is the root of all evil.
But the sources flip that, don't they? They say the real evil isn't loving money, it's the lack of money.
Precisely. It's the lack of money that forces you into that job you hate, right?
Oh.
Or causes those awful fights with your spouse about debt.
Yeah, money problems they're corrosive.
Yeah.
And just being smart academically doesn't seem to fix them.
It doesn't. And that's where financial intelligence comes in. It's defined as the specific part of your overall intelligence that you use to solve financial problems.
So if you have a problem like, I don't earn enough, or I'm drowning in debt.
And you actually figure out how to solve it. Your financial IQ goes up. You literally get smarter financially.
But if you just ignore the problem...
It festers. It gets worse. You don't learn anything.
Okay, I have to jump in here, though, because the most famous challenge in these materials goes against probably the biggest piece of financial advice out there.
You mean the house thing?
Yeah.
Your house is not an asset. Your house is a liability. I mean, come on. For most people, their home is their biggest asset, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're banking on.
I know, it sounds crazy, but the definition here is strict. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out,
Right.
your main home. It constantly takes money out.
Yeah.
Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, repairs, upkeep.
So even if it appreciates in value on paper,
Doesn't matter for cash flow. According to this view, if it doesn't generate positive cash flow month after month, it's a liability. And look, this wasn't just theory. 2007, the credit crisis.
oh yeah, painful lesson for millions. Exactly. Millions found out the hard way their asset was actually a huge illiquid liability they could lose to foreclosure. If it doesn't pay you, it's basically a fancy form of debt.
Wow. That really highlights this paradox the author mentions about his poor dad.
Highly educated guy, right? PhD, brilliant educator.
But struggled with money his whole life.
Yeah, because he kept trying to solve money problems using his academic or professional intelligence. Different tool sets entirely. You need financial intelligence for financial problems.
It's a separate skill set.
Totally separate. And realizing that forces us to ask, okay, why did the game change so drastically for everyone? What actually happened?
Which brings us to those 2 huge shifts. The first one, 1971, Nixon. What was that about? Why did saving suddenly become like a bad move?
Right. 1971. That was basically the end of money as we knew it. President Nixon took the U.S. dollar completely off the gold standard.
Okay.
And the moment that happened, the U.S. dollar stopped being actual money, something backed by a real tangible asset like gold. It just became currency.
And why does that technical difference matter so much to, say, me or someone listening?
Because the word currency itself gives you a clue. It implies movement, like an electrical current or a river current.
Okay.
If a currency stops moving, if people hoard it, it loses value fast. Real money, historically, holds intrinsic value. Currency is just a token based on faith or government decree.
And the sources point out that historically, these kinds of currencies, they don't end well.
Never. Every single currency not backed by a hard asset eventually goes to zero. Think of the continental dollar after the American Revolution, or the German mark after World War I. So when the U.S. started pumping out dollars backed by, well, Nothing what the sources bluntly call funny money. Gresham's law took effect immediately.
Gresham's law. That's the one about bad money driving out good money.
Exactly. Good money, like gold or silver, gets hoarded or leaves circulation, while the bad money, the currency, floods the system.
And this created a weird situation.
A total paradox. Suddenly, savers became the losers. Why? Because they were holding on to something designed to lose value over time due to inflation.
And debtors became the winners. How?
Because if you borrowed the funny money, the currency, and used it to buy real assets, things like gold, silver, oil, real estate, businesses.
That hold value or go up as the currency goes down.
Precisely. Those assets would appreciate as the currency inevitably declined. So paying back the loan later with cheaper dollars became easier, holding the currency itself. That was passively losing purchasing power every single day.
Man, that's a huge mental shift for most people. Saving is supposed to be virtuous.
It used to be when money was money. Now saving currency is like holding melting ice cubes.
Okay, that's shift number one. What was the second big one? 1974.
Yeah, 1974 basically killed traditional job security and retirement certainty for millions.
How?
That's when the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, ERISA, came in. And following that, businesses largely started phasing out defined benefit pension plans, the old DB plans.
That's the kind where the company guarantees you a certain paycheck for life after you retire, right? Like a gold watch and a pension.
Exactly. That was the promise. Predictable income for life. But companies replaced them with defined contribution plans, DC plans. Think 401k, ESS.
And the differences?
Huge. With DC plans, the company might contribute, you contribute, but the outcome isn't guaranteed. All the risk of investing, market downturns, inflation, that got shifted directly onto the employee's shoulders.
Employees who mostly have zero financial education.
Precisely. So it's no wonder the source claims the biggest financial fear in America today isn't like a stock market crash. It's running out of money during retirement.
Yeah.
Because people are on their own now, managing investments they don't understand.
And the sources connect this to government actions too, right? Without taking sides, what's the claim there?
Yeah, the material points out that, look, regardless of who's in charge politically, the claim is Democrats tend to tax and spend, while Republicans tend to borrow and spend. The end result is the same. Massive, ever-increasing government debt and borrowing.
Which has long-term consequences.
Huge ones. We're talking trillions, like the source mentioned $74 trillion in unfunded liabilities for Social Security and Medicare down the road. How do governments typically deal with that kind of debt?
Well, they either raise taxes significantly, cut services drastically, or
they print more money, more funny money.
Which just devalues the currency even further.
Exactly. It fuels inflation and makes the problem of saving currency even worse. It's a cycle.
So the old advice, work hard, save that devaluing currency, hope your 401k works out. It's completely mismatched for this new reality.
A catastrophic mismatch. It's like bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Okay, so if the game changed, we need new skills. Let's get into these 5 financial intelligences, the core IQs we need to build. IQ number 1.
Financial IQ number 1.
Yeah.
Making more money. Simple enough, right? But it's about how you make it. This starts with understanding the 4 ways people generate income, the famous quadrants.
Right. E for employee, S for self-employed or small business.
B for big business owner, typically 500 plus employees, and I for investor.
And the big distinction here, especially regarding IQ Haj 1, relates to taxes, right? E's and S's work for, what's it called? Earned income.
Earned income. And the sources argue it's the worst kind of income from a tax perspective. It's the most heavily taxed, the hardest to protect.
Why is that? Why does the system seem to penalize people working a job or running a small shop?
Well, think about the tax flow. E's and S's typically earn money, pay taxes on it immediately through withholding or quarterly payments, and then they get to live on whatever's left over.
Okay.
B's and I's, on the other hand, operate differently. They often generate income through their businesses or investments, spend money on expenses, first things the business needs, salaries, supplies, even depreciation on assets, and then they pay taxes on whatever profit remains.
So they get deductions and can manage their taxable income much more effectively.
Way more effectively. The tax laws are written to incentivize business creation and investment because those activities theoretically create jobs and housing. So simply trying to earn a higher salary as an E, while nice, doesn't fundamentally change your tax disadvantage.
This explains that story about the author leaving a good job to take a, low-paying sales job at Xerox? That seems backward if you're trying to make more money.
It seems backward if you're only focused on the paycheck, yeah. But the philosophy here is prioritizing the process of learning over the immediate pay.
Ah, okay.
He specifically took that job, despite the pay cut, to conquer his shyness and fear of rejection. He needed to learn how to sell, how to communicate, how to handle no. Those are crucial entrepreneurial skills.
So the skills gained from that process were the real asset.
Infinitely more valuable long-term than the salary he gave up. That's building human capital that pays off later in the B or I quadrants.
Got it. Okay, let's move to financial IQ Chag 2. Protecting your money. This sounds like defense.
It is. Once you
Eh?
make money, the world tries to take it from you. You need to protect it.
And the biggest predator is?
Taxes. Definitely the biggest legal one.
Yeah.
But the sources list a whole bunch of others.
Like, ooh, this sounds ominous.
Well, think about it. Bankers, they want your money in low-yield accounts or to lend it out. Brokers and financial salespeople, they're often pushing products with high fees or commissions that benefit them, maybe more than you.
Okay, the usual suspects.
Then it gets more personal. The sources mention love predators, a stark warning about financial motives in relationships, even relatives, death vultures waiting for an inheritance, and of course, lawyers, the threat of lawsuits.
Wow, that's quite a list. There's an analogy they use, something about bunnies.
Yeah, the bunnies, birds, and bugs analogy.
Oh.
It's memorable.
That's the point.
The point is that some of the biggest threats to your wealth aren't obvious enemies. They can be people or institutions we love, trust, or respect who are standing right behind us, metaphorically speaking.
Close enough to easily reach into our pockets.
Exactly. So IQQ #2 isn't just about minimizing taxes. It's about structuring your affairs to protect assets from all these potential predators.
And how do you measure this IQ?
Simple percentage. What percentage of your total income do you actually keep after taxes and other potential losses? Someone earning $100K and keeping $80K, or 80%, has a higher IQ #2 than someone earning $200K but only keeping 100K, or 50%.
Makes sense. So the core strategy for protection.
Don't hold significant assets in your personal name. Use legal entities, LLCs, S-Corps, C-Corps, trust, depending on the situation, and professional advice, of course. Create legal firewalls.
Okay, IQ tag 3, budgeting your money. I feel like I know this one. Live below your means, right?
Nope. That's the old advice again. Rich Dad's advice, according to the source, was the opposite. Expand your means.
Expand your means. How?
By focusing on increasing your income, that's IQ tag 1, so you can create a budget surplus, not just by cutting back. The goal isn't just to survive, it's to have extra money specifically for building wealth.
And what do you do with that surplus? This is where pay yourself first comes in, isn't it?
Absolutely crucial. That surplus, the money designated for saving, maybe tithing if you do that, and definitely investing it, must be treated as your most important expense.
Like literally the first bill you pay.
Yes. Listed first on your budget or financial statement. Most people treat savings or investing as the last priority. I'll invest whatever's left over, which is usually nothing.
So you allocate the money to your investments first before paying rent, mortgage, credit cards.
That's the radical idea presented. And it's not just about discipline. It's framed as a motivational tool.
How so? That sounds stressful.
It is. The author talks about how he and his wife would pay themselves first, putting money into investments which deliberately created a cash shortfall for their regular bills.
Seriously?
Yeah. The pressure from creditors calling, the landlord wanting rent, that pressure became intense motivation to get creative, find new ways to make more money, IQ tag 1, to cover everything. It forced them to expand their means.
Wow, okay. That's aggressive budgeting.
Yeah.
Which leads nicely into IQ Shack 4, leveraging your money.
Right, leverage. This is probably the most powerful and maybe most misunderstood concept.
Because everyone says leverage is risky. More leverage, more risk. Higher returns mean higher risk.
That's the conventional wisdom. But the sources argue that's only true if you don't know what you're doing, or if you have no control over the asset.
Control again. Like with stocks or mutual funds, you have no control there.
Exactly. You're just along for the ride. Buying stocks on margin, that is risky because you have zero influence over the company's operations or the market's whims.
But with assets, you can control.
Like your own business or investment real estate, you can influence the outcome. You can improve operations, manage tenants, force appreciation through improvements, refinance strategically. Control mitigates risk, allowing you to use leverage more safely.
So leverage itself isn't the devil. It's leverage without control or knowledge that's dangerous.
Precisely. This is also why the idea of net worth is often dismissed as kind of worthless.
Worthless. Why?
Because it's usually based on opinions like a home appraisal, not necessarily cash flow. Or it includes assets like cars that are declining in value, or the value is only going up because the dollar itself is going down. Inflation making things look pricier. Real wealth in this framework is about cash flow and control.
Okay. And the ultimate goal of leverage, according to the sources, is money for nothing. Infinite return.
That's the holy grail. Getting your initial investment back out while still controlling the cash flowing asset. Or financing the entire deal using other people's money, OPM, so you have zero of your own cash in, but you still get the cash flow and appreciation.
Can you walk us through that Bentley example? Because that sounds like a classic case of using assets smartly.
Sure. So the author wanted a $200,000 Bentley. Definitely a liability, takes money out.
Right.
Instead of just buying it with cash, which would deplete his capital, he identified an asset he controlled, let's say $200,000 worth of gold and silver shares in a brokerage account.
Okay, so he had the $200 already, but in an asset form.
Exactly. He then actively managed and traded within that account, using leverage carefully, until the account value grew to around $450,000.
So he more than doubled it.
Right. Then he sold off about $250,000 worth of the shares, used $200,000 to buy the Bentley outright, used maybe $50,000 to cover capital gains taxes and any commissions.
And what was left in the investment account?
His original $200,000 principal was still there, untouched, ready to grow and be leveraged again. The asset's growth paid for the liability and the taxes. He got the car for free, in a sense, without spending his seed capital.
That's pretty clever. It combines making money, IQ I tag 1, protecting it in an account, IQ tag 2, and leveraging it, IQ tag 4.
Exactly. It's about making your assets work hard to buy your luxuries.
Okay, final one. Financial IQ high tag 5, improving your financial information. This sounds crucial in the information age.
It's absolutely paramount. The author mentions learning this lesson early, like in Vietnam, where having timely, accurate intelligence was literally life or death.
And the same applies to finance.
Totally. Wealth today is arguably more abundant than ever, but it's often tied to information and technology. Think about the speed at which fortunes were made with things like, early social media or tech startups. Information is the new currency, in a way.
But not all information is equal, right? There's a key distinction made.
Huge distinction. You must learn to separate facts from opinions.
Give me examples.
Facts are things you can measure, verify, touch. Cash flow from a rental property is a fact. The amount of debt on it is a fact. Opinions, things like what the property might be worth next year, an appraisal or projection, or whether a stock is good value. Capital gains are often opinion-based until realized.
And the danger is mistaking opinions for facts.
That's what the source calls financial insanity, making major decisions based on speculation or market sentiment, rather than on verifiable data like cash flow.
This leads to the insider versus outsider idea, doesn't it?
Yeah. Professionals or insiders tend to make money from amateurs or outsiders because the insiders have better, faster information. They're closer to the source.
While amateurs are reading yesterday's news.
Exactly. They hear a hot tip in the newspaper or from their brother-in-law, which means the real opportunity has likely already passed. They're trading on ancient history.
So the investment strategy that follows from this isn't necessarily broad diversification.
Not according to these sources. It's more about focusing your energy and capital on understanding specific trends where you can get good information and potentially gain an edge.
And the material you reviewed highlighted metals.
Yeah, there was a strong focus on silver, for example. The argument was that it's not just a precious metal like gold, but also a critical industrial metal that gets consumed.
Used up in electronics, solar panels, etc.
Right. And despite that demand, it was presented as still being historically undervalued compared to gold. That combination of factors led the source to call it potentially a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Now, that's the source's view, of course.
Of course. But the principle is focus on deep information within specific trends. Don't just scatter your money everywhere based on generic advice.
That's the gist of IQ Shack 5. Get quality information and know the difference between fact and opinion.
Okay, so we have the 5 IQs. Make more money, protect your money, budget your money, leverage your money, and improve your financial information. Bringing them all together, that's financial integrity.
Yeah, integrity in the sense of soundness, wholeness, completeness. All 5 intelligences need to be developed and working together synergistically.
Like how a sophisticated investor, say Warren Buffett, analyzes a business.
Exactly. They look for that intrinsic value. Does it have a competitive moat? Protection? Can it be leveraged effectively? Can it expand? And crucially, does it have predictable cash flow? Facts. That's financial integrity in action.
So the big takeaway for you listening is what? If you're facing money problems,
don't avoid them. According to this philosophy, the only way to get richer and actually increase your financial intelligence is to actively tackle your money problems head on.
see them as learning opportunities.
Exactly. Every problem you solve makes you smarter, makes you stronger financially for the next challenge. Avoiding them just keeps you stuck.
That ties into a really fascinating final thought you mentioned about neuroscience. Mirror neurons.
Yeah, it's a powerful concept. Neuroscientists talk about these mirror neurons, basically. Our brains are wired to subconsciously imitate the behaviors, attitudes, and even the limitations of the people we spend the most time with. Our environment shapes us profoundly.
So if you hang around people who are struggling financially or who constantly preach, live below your means,
Your brain naturally starts to adopt that mindset. It accepts limitations. If you genuinely want to get richer, the argument goes, you can't just passively accept the average advice or environment.
you have to consciously upgrade your surroundings.
Yes, you need to intelligently challenge yourself. Put yourself in environments, physically or intellectually, like reading challenging books or seeking out mentors that stimulate your brain, that expose you to higher levels of financial thinking and problem solving. Find places where your own financial genius can actually be activated and grow.
Instead of just accepting the default advice that might actually be holding you back, a powerful reminder that your environment really does influence your potential.
It's huge. Choose your inputs wisely.
Wise words to end on. That's all the time we have for this deep dive into the new rules of money. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.